Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's NASCAR Cam. We are joined by Brad Keselowski, driver of the number 2 Miller Lite Ford for Team Penske. A Rochester Hills, Michigan native, Keselowski has earned 1 win and 14 top 10 finishes this season as he returns to his home track of Michigan International Speedway, the site of Sunday's Pure Michigan 400. In addition, Brad Keselowski's Checkered Flag Foundation has partnered with Cooper Standard as the presenting sponsor for Saturday's NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race, Careers for Veterans 200. Brad, you have a busy and exciting week ahead of you. Tell us what it means to return to your home state and have a chance to race in front of the hometown crowd.
Yeah, boy, we sure do, Amanda, but it's a good week. You know, it's busy, but it's a very good week to be back in Michigan. Starting tomorrow, we're going to get in there early and do some autograph signings, appearance signings for the fans. Spend some time at the Woodward Dream Cruise, which those in the area know is a bit of a staple in the community as far as race week is concerned. So we're looking forward to that. And then, of course, the 2 races, first with the Camping World Truck Series and, of course, as you mentioned earlier, with Cooper Standard and my foundation teaming up for the Careers for Veterans 200, which is always an exciting race with the trucks and the way they race around Michigan and draft and do all those crazy things. That's always one of my favorite races of the year to watch, and certainly a pleasure and honor to be a part of being the presenting sponsor and kind of showcasing how important the veteran cause is for both Cooper Standard and myself and our foundation, the Checkered Flag Foundation. So that's going to be really exciting, hoping Tyler Reddick and Ryan Blaney can have 2 good runs with Tyler Reddick leading the points and having a tremendous season. We want to see that keep going, and just all in all want to have a great race there Saturday. And then kind of transitioning to the Cup race Sunday, certainly will be a bit of a wild card race with the Aero package. That'll be similar to what we raced at Indianapolis for the Sprint Cup Series. We're not really sure what to expect. Indianapolis was certainly a trial version, but Indianapolis and Michigan are 2 very, very different racetracks. So we really don't know what's going to happen, but we're ready for the challenge. We had a great race with the previous Aero package at Michigan in June where, I felt like we were probably a 2nd or 3rd place car and kind of got shuffled with the pit strategy at the end to a 6th place finish. But we've had a lot of speed in general over the last month or so at Team Penske with obviously what you saw at Joey at Pocono and as well as Watkins Glen and some of our performances with the 2-car at Kentucky and Loudon. So I would expect us to be very fast, and I'm really excited to have an opportunity to win a race in my home state, at my home track in Michigan at the Cup level. We've done it before at the Xfinity level, winning 2 races. We've come very close at the Cup level, finishing 2nd with quite a few top 5s and top 10s, but haven't been able to punch through and get that win. I think this could be the time and this could be the year.
Brad, thank you for that. We'll now go to the media for questions for today's guest with Brad Keselowski.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions. If you do have a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question, you may press *1 on your telephone keypad to ask a question. Okay, our first question comes from Bob Pockrass from ESPN.com. You may ask your question.
Yeah, Brad. At Indy, it seemed like cars got loose when they were starting to kind of pick up the draft behind somebody. Why would Michigan be any different?
That's a very good question, Bob. I don't expect it to be much different as far as the way the cars handle behind each other. Perhaps the only difference could be between the 2 tracks is Michigan has a much wider groove in theory and the potential to run different lanes in the corners. The way these aerodynamics work, specific to this high drag package, certainly you want to be in line down the straightaway to get the maximum effect of the loss of drag. But you want to be kind of staggered in the corners to try to keep the downforce in the corner where you need it to keep the car going through the corner as fast as possible. So Indianapolis, you don't have a lot of width to really pull that off, Bob. But I think at Michigan there's quite a bit more width to the track, especially down in turns 3 and 4, to where you could possibly pull that maneuver off.
Okay, did you say there's more width? Is that what you said? I'm sorry, we're just having trouble hearing.
Yeah, width. Sorry,
okay.
Width to the track. Sorry about that.
No, I think it's the line. Also, do you want any changes to the aero rules for the chase, or would you like things to be stay the same?
Well, I'd say first off, I'd like to see a lot of changes on the aero front, but not changes that we're uncertain about. So, I don't think we've come up with the platform that we would all label as being perfect with the testing we've done so far. So we still have a lot of work to do, and I'm not in favor of making changes unless we have something that everyone with inside the industry feels confident is a noted improvement.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, and our next question comes from Jeff Glock from USA Today. You may ask your question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, obviously Indianapolis was one test of this high drag package, and people were still kind of like, well, we don't know how it's going to handle Michigan, so kind of reserve judgment. After this race, if it looks the same or feels like it handles the same as it did at Indy, will those races be enough for the drivers to make a judgment on whether or not it worked?
Oh, yeah. I think clearly, Jeff, if you have 2 races on this package that really was made for Michigan and Indianapolis, we should have a very strong indication as to the success factors for this package. So, yeah, I would say after these 2 races, we'll know exactly where we stand.
And is it fair to say that you somewhat know about the other package yet? I know you just touched on it a little bit, but as far as the low downforce or at least lower downforce package, or will Darlington dictate, the success of that one as well?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see a second race at Darlington to give that a complete answer as well. Kentucky has always been a little bit on its own as a racetrack. Certainly, I think the racing at Kentucky this year was better than it's been in years past. But I would say that one race at any track is not a large enough sampling size to really brand the whole series to a specific package.
Thanks.
No problem, Jeff.
Okay, our next question comes from Nate Ryan from NBC Sports. You may ask your question.
Yeah, Brad, following up on what Bob and Jeff were asking about, so if NASCAR does the low downforce at Darlington and that's a huge success, and say Michigan doesn't quite produce the results maybe that they want, is it too late to try low downforce again in the chase, given that you got a 2-race sample size then, and if it goes well, or do you think NASCAR just needs to set the rules like Steve O'Donnell indicated today, that here's what we're going to run during the chase and just stay that way?
Well, I don't believe, and I've never been in the belief it's too late to do anything the right way. And if everyone believes that one package is heads and tails above another package, then we got to find a way to make it work and get it in front of our fans. So I don't believe it's ever too late. There's some considerations to Goodyear as our tire supplier and some of their timelines of constructing tires to really fit these packages. So yeah, certainly there's some consideration there, but my understanding of that is it's a 2-month process. So if you make that decision inside these 2-month windows for these chase races, we should be more than capable of executing it. And I think that's what I'd like to see. But it's at the end of the day, it's not my call; it's NASCAR's call.
And then one more for you, Brad. Following up on what you were saying about punching through and trying to get that elusive victory. It seemed that when you guys won the championship in 2012, the hallmark of your run was a perfect execution, especially on strategy. And it seems like both strategy in the pit. There have been some, for your team, some uncharacteristic miscues the last month, whether it be at Kentucky or New Hampshire or Pocono. Is that something you guys have talked about, or do you feel like it's just more circumstances than execution that's kept you from the wins lately?
I would say it's a bit of both. To answer your question perfectly, Nate, circumstances and execution. Certainly at Kentucky, I would say we did not execute. But then I would look at Loudon and say, there was oil on the track for 10 laps. We ran through the oil for 10 laps. One car pits, puts on 4 tires, and with those 4 tires passes the leaders, gets his lap back, and NASCAR decides to throw the yellow. In that particular instance, there was really no strategy that was going to beat those circumstances. I look at that one and say circumstance. I'd look at Kentucky and say execution, and probably a mixture in between. Looking at Pocono, I probably cost us a shot at the win with sliding through the pit box and hitting my pit crew guys early in the race, and we were able to recover to a second without wondering what might have been had we not had those issues. And then Watkins Glen this week, probably complete circumstances. If the one car I think hit somebody and drove around the track for a lap with oil lines leaking, and we had a 5 or 6 lap yellow flag period that opened up the window for Joey and even the 4 car and those guys to be able to make it on fuel. So those particular circumstances are outside of our control. We know that. We try to control what we can, but certainly the ones that are in our control, the execution issues, whether that was my fault at Pocono or some issues with a guy falling down at Kentucky on a pit stop, those are things that we can control. So we need to focus on the things we can control. We know the speed is good, which is great. That's where you start. And I look at 2012, our speed is just as good as it was then. Our execution is not quite where we want it to be. But with the way these chase brackets work, I think we have the opportunity to get that execution where it needs to be for when it counts. And all we really need to do is break through each bracket and get to Homestead and knock it out of the ballpark. And I know that my team's capable of doing it. I know that I'm capable of doing it. We just have a few little things to clean up for sure.
Thanks a lot, Brad.
No problem, Nate.
Hey, Eric. Next question comes from Mike Brubinell from the Detroit Free Press. You may ask your question.
Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Mike.
How you doing? Look forward to seeing you on Woodward on Thursday, doing some burnouts or something. But 2 questions. There's some new safety initiatives with the interior pit road wall at Michigan this weekend. I just wanted you to perhaps comment on that. And also, I'm glad Scarlett is doing well, and my granddaughter had a similar situation. But I mean, does that make you and Paige a stronger couple? Does it teach you? I guess it teaches you a lot about life's lessons.
For sure. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. First off, Mike, I hope your family is doing well. I'm pleased to say that mine is doing very well, and certainly that's a tough experience to go through. But I guess I kind of count the blessings on it and think of how all those things kind of came together perfectly with off weeks, and the way things could have unfolded as good as they can for the situation. So certainly those are very galvanizing moments that probably affect you in ways you don't realize till many years down the road. But I feel lucky to have a great family and support structure to get through it. And whether it's Paige or guys like Roger who helped me get in the hospital and get her taken care of, I felt very, very lucky and fortunate. So, I think, it was certainly a very difficult but, like I said, galvanizing time for Paige and I. And in some ways it was an incredible moment for me and the Penske family to kind of galvanize together as well with the help that they gave me through the process. So it was certainly not the most enjoyable in the moment situation to go through, but I think it's a moment that will certainly take something away from for the rest of my life, and has brought me closer to my personal life and professional life all in one instance. So kind of a incredibly difficult, strange, but inspiring thing to go through. As it pertains to Michigan and the pit road wall, I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure exactly what to expect. I like the ideas behind it, and I appreciate any track that kind of takes their own steps, as it appears Michigan has done, to take their safety to the next level. Safety is always a moving target, especially as the cars change, as they get faster, as new rule packages come out. Things happen that we've never seen before. This year alone, we've seen multiple incidents on the track that we've never seen before. And we'll continue to see incidents like that in the future that we've never seen before as the racing continues to migrate into different forms with different tactics. This week in particular, we know we're going to see different tactics with drafting and all those other different things. And those are, I'm sure, going to open up even new things that we haven't thought of. At Indianapolis, it was cockpit temperatures. At Michigan, it could be something else we've never thought of. And in order to get through those moments or those developments from a safety perspective, tracks need to be on the cutting edge, and they need to be thinking a step ahead of the sport and its rules packages. So when I see a track like Michigan kind of go out on a limb and make changes to improve the safety without necessarily a large voice in the garage demanding it, it makes me very proud and very happy to see. And certainly Roger Curtis and his staff at Michigan deserve a lot of credit for that.
Thank you very much, Brad, and see you Thursday.
Very well. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Okay, our next question comes from Dan Gelston from the Associated Press. You may ask your question.
Hi, Brad. Frank Kimmel's coming up on 600 career starts in the ARCA series, and he's also closing in on Iggy Katona's record for most starts in that series. You and your family have known him for a long time. What is it about him that's sort of made him so successful and able to last as long as he has in that series?
Yeah. Frank. A lot of people don't know this, but Frank's actually the guy that introduced me to my girlfriend, Paige. So we have a very close connection. And Frank has done a lot of tremendous things. I can remember him from as far back to the first time I met him when I was 8 years old. And we used to call him the big kid because he's a big guy, right? And he would walk around with squirt guns and squirt us as kids, and we'd play with him back and forth, and we had a grand old time. But I can remember that. Heck, that's been almost 20 years ago. In fact, it has been 20 years ago. And to see his success from them, I always felt like I knew him before he was a big shot. And so he'd probably say the same thing to me. But to see Frank be as successful as he is now, and to have all those starts, all those wins, championships, I just feel connected to him and feel lucky to know him as a friend of the family and just an all-around great guy. His success couldn't have happened to a better person.
Well, then a quick follow-up. How did he introduce the two of you? And I understand he was also your babysitter every now and then at the track, or at least one.
Yeah, he babysat at Indianapolis. He had a good time.
And how did he introduce you and your wife, girlfriend?
Well, he introduced Paige and I. Actually, I saw him in Kentucky, and I went over to say hello, and Paige was with him as a friend of the family, and I asked him later, I said, "Who was that girl? She's really pretty cute," and that's kind of how it all started.
Thank you.
No problem.
Our next question comes from Zach Albert from NASCAR Online. You may ask your question.
Yeah, hey Brad. I was just checking in about you come away from Watkins Glen and everybody talks about we should do more of that. Would you be open to running the longer layout using the boot layout in future races there?
Well, I'm a NASCAR race car driver, which means I have no choice but to be open to whatever NASCAR says we're going to do. But if you're asking for my opinion, I think it'd be a bad move to change the track. The track's very successful right now. Our lap lengths are perfect. I think Watkins Glen is the best road course in the nation and in some ways probably in the world. So I would make as little changes as possible to it if I were them.
Okay, and have you squared things away or tried to reach out to Matt Crafton after the run-in you guys had at Pocono, or do you really try to do that as a matter of course?
Yeah, he and I obviously spoke very briefly after we had the incident at Pocono, but at the end of the day, we wrecked. I mean, you can't really change any of that. And, it's my hope that he'll get a chance to look at the replay and get a better idea of what exactly happened and understand that, some of those situations are just kind of racing deals. And, I know that I didn't make contact with him on purpose. And the other side, I'm pretty sure he didn't make contact with me on purpose concerning where he's at. I destroyed a truck that I have to pay for. So I wasn't particularly all that pleased as both an owner and a driver, and I'm sure he's not very pleased as a driver who lost a lot of points. So, I don't think either of us really won in that situation, and I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Great. Thanks, Brad.
No problem.
And our next question comes from Claire Lang from Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. You may ask your question.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate your time. I was thinking about the manufacturers at Michigan and the battle that is the manufacturer battle. A lot of fans talk about it, and Joey Logano won in 2013 and the sweep that year to the Manufacturers Trophy Award. Can you talk about that battle? You think about Pearson and Ford's first win at the track. You as a driver, how much engaged are you in that Ford performance battle?
Well, Lee, it's an incredible battle for the manufacturers and one that they take very, very seriously, I can tell you. Joey and I both have done all we can to score as many manufacturer points as possible over the last few weeks. It's my understanding the battle is fairly close. I don't have the numbers sitting in front of me right now, but I know it's something that Ford talks about a lot. I think it's pretty amazing that Ford is doing as well as they are, considering the limited amount of teams that they have that are competing for wins right now across all three series. So we're proud to be a part of that, and hopefully we can carry them to that manufacturer's title this year in all three series.
Do you feel the pressure of that? Do you feel like, do you get the feeling from Ford, you guys got to step it up here because this is a manufacturer's deal. It's pretty big here.
I don't feel any particular pressure for the manufacturer's championship beyond if we go out and win the Sprint Cup championship. We've done all we could do for them. So I put the Sprint Cup championship at the top of the podium, and I think everything else falls in line if you're able to make a solid run at that.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
And our next question comes from Lee Spencer from motorsports.com. You may ask your question.
Thank you so much. Brad, when you got out of the car with the first run at the the high drag package at Indianapolis, you talked a little bit about the heat, and I know the heat affected a lot of different drivers that day. What type of precautions have you and Paul taken to kind of soften that blow, or do you think that because there will be more drafting, or they're anticipating more drafting at Michigan, that he won't be as much of a problem?
Oh, no, I think the heat's going to be even worse this weekend. There's a large amount of concern across both the teams and the drivers, really all members, for this rules package coming up to Michigan, specific to the fact that even though the track is wider and bigger, the significance of the draft is going to be even more important. So you're going to have to stay in line as much as possible. As you stay in line, the car gets less and less air because that's essentially how the draft works. And the speeds at Michigan are higher than they are at Indianapolis, which means the parts, specifically the drivetrain, are going to be even hotter. So I know the team is very, very concerned about the drivetrain, everything from the engine all the way back to the axles, because they're really not made for these temperatures. We kind of build our cars to, the 110% rule, which is, if 100% is what you expect a car under normal loads to carry, you build in another 10% as safety margin. Well, that 100% was based around the rules package that we began the year around. And this particular iteration of that rules package has more than ate up that 10% margin that we theoretically work around with the cars. So I would not be surprised to see a lot of car failures this weekend, specific to heat relation as it pertains to the aero package and its kind of cause and effects. And inside the car, I would not be surprised to see a lot of hot and worn out drivers after the race. We all know we're in for a handful of a race. We kind of got a hall pass at Indianapolis with race day being a little bit later than normal with scheduling. And it was very cloudy most of the day and not quite as hot as what we've been accustomed to at Indianapolis, where it appears Michigan, as the last time we checked the weather radar, is going to be full sun and mid 80 degrees. So that's going to be the toughest race probably of the year physically with this rules package.
I've been in the car with you before, and I know you don't like to use your air conditioning in the passenger car, but what will Paul do, from a comfort standpoint, to get more air to you and make it a little less taxing?
He's going to tell me to suck it up is what he's going to do, Lee. He's not going to, if we have to route any extra air, it's going to go to the parts on the car that we're very much concerned about.
Super. Thanks so much for your reply.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, and our next question comes from Bill Fleischman from the Philadelphia Daily News. May I ask your question?
Hi, Brad. A question about you and Joey Logano as teammates. You seem to have welcomed him to Penske Racing. I'm just curious how well you knew him beforehand and your thoughts on how you guys are both having great seasons. So it seems to be working out pretty well. So.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. It has been working out very well. Joey's done a great job, and Joey's on the path to winning a Sprint Cup championship. He'll win one over the next few years for Team Penske, and I think Roger knows that. Everybody knows that. Everybody's feeling that right now with his performance. So he has a lot to look forward to in his career, and a high tide raises all ships. And I felt like just kind of watching Joey as a race car driver, that he would get to this level where he's at right now. I told Roger that, 2 or 3 years ago, right before he hired him. And, I wanted Joey to drive that car. And I think Roger knew that. And the reason why I wanted him to do that is just in what I said, high tides raise all ships. And as Joey continues to run better, it can't help but make my team better, whether that's with the business model as with respects to sponsors, or with the manufacturer level with respect to their support, or even the team level and recruiting continuously better employees as ones are displaced over time. So, I think we're very fortunate. Joey has certainly made me a better race car driver, and I'm thankful to have him as a teammate.
Thank you.
No problem.
Our next question comes from Kelly Crandall from PopularSpeed.com. You may ask your question.
Thanks, Brad. A lot has been made about, Kyle Busch's recent streak and what that feeling's like when the driver has everything going their way. But, on your side, you keep saying that Penske's not where they want to be. So from your perspective as a driver going to the racetrack each weekend, where does that put your mindset when, you're trying to break through for a second win of the year, but at the same time you keep saying that you're not where you want to be in terms of matching up with the competition?
Yeah, I mean, we aren't where we want to be. At this point, last year we had 3 wins, and, right now we're sitting at 1. We'd like to have 3 or 4 more than we've got right now. And I think we've had opportunities that we just haven't been able to capitalize on, Kelly. But I think we can hit those. I think we're very close to being where we want to be. We have to make a few noticeable gains to get there. And those gains are, they're in sight. There's light at the end of the tunnel, but until we're there, we're not there. So, we've got a few steps to make. And, I want to make sure we keep pushing as a team and as a company to get there because we're not there.
Does that do anything in terms of how that changes your mindset? I'm sure the team's still confident that you're going to win and you're going to get there, but as a driver, is it a little bit more frustrating or just kind of, like I said, where is that mindset for you right now behind the wheel?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating to not have the wins that I feel like we're capable of. For me, I look at tracks that I've never won at and felt like that we were really strong at and didn't quite close it out, like Watkins Glen this week, or Indianapolis we were really strong, and a few others. And I think, Kelly, what could have been, and I certainly want to win at some of those tracks I've never won at. You want to win every week, but more specific to the ones you've never won at. But I know that we're on the cusp, and as frustrating as it is to not win when you think you have an opportunity to do so, Kelly, I think you have to temper it with the knowledge that you're really close, and sometimes everything has to just go your way, and it hasn't. But when it does, you can get on one of those streaks. And I think that's what we're seeing out of Kyle. He's caught some good breaks, and he's done a great job of executing along the way across the board as a team and driver. So we need to do all those things as well. And we've had weeks where we've had, if there's 4 pieces of the puzzle, whether it be speed, execution, a little bit of luck, and so forth, we've been able to hit 3 and not 4. It seems like a different piece of the puzzle we kind of miss. So it's just part of the game. I know we can hit it because we have hit intermittently each one of those pieces. We just have to put it all together.
Great. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, it is my pleasure to turn the call back over to NASCAR's Amanda Ellis.
Brad, thank you for joining us today, and best of luck this weekend in Michigan.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you to the media that came out, and we appreciate your support.